Hey guys, it's Huzon. Today I'm going to show you how to enable MIDI input for the plugin SurferEQ. Now, SurferEQ is what is called a pitch tracking EQ in the sense that the band tokens shift according to pitch of whatever is being input into it. So in this way, you can actually keep the same EQ curve but have it adjust by the pitch. So like if you're playing like a C5 and you have the EQ curve one way and you play C7, it will shift all the band tokens in an appropriate way so it keeps the same curve, and that way you can keep the same timbre of your instrument or track or whatever. So that's really nice. Especially if you're making hardstyle kick and you don't want to bounce in sample like I think the majority of people do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to load up. So I'm going to show you two methods. So one is just straight up using SurferEQ, and the other one is if you're using Impatcher. I think Patchers might be a more accurate way of doing it if you're like OCD. I'll show you in a little bit. So anyway, so I've got this kick here, just a standard FL Studio kick. Okay, and the first thing you gotta do is you have to make sure you've got MIDI input enabled. So by default, it uses pitch detection, which has a lot of latency. Right here it says almost 50 milliseconds, so it's a lot. And so what I'm gonna do is there's three options. I don't really know what the first two do. I don't know what the third one does, but basically there's default pitch detection, which has high latency, and no overrides detection. So when there's MIDI input, then it overrides the internal pitch detection. And if you don't want that, you should just select surf by note. So that means it only uses MIDI input. It won't change according to the audio and its internal pitch detection. So now that I've got that, I can click on this gear icon, and I will disable some of these tokens here because I don't need them. And I'll click surf. So surf means that the tokens will change according to the pitch, either the internal pitch detection or MIDI input. And as you can see, once I clicked surf by note, the latency down here went down to 0, so there's none. Anyway. Okay, so right now nothing's changing because I'm not routing any MIDI input to this plugin. What I'm going to do first is bring this up. One of the drawbacks of this is that when you have MIDI input enabled and you're not sending it anything, it's like it's not even working. Yeah. Anyway, let's not do that. Anyway, so I already predetermined that I wanted to do this to my EQ. You'll hear what that sounds like in a little bit. So, second step is you go and create, well, one way to do it is to create MIDI out, and you set the port number to something that you want. I pick 8 for some odd reason. And okay, now in order to get this to work, you need to expand the settings. Go over here and select the input port and set it to the same port, so it's 8 here. So if I press C7 on my keyboard, sorry, I mean C5, you can see that it's detecting the pitch. This icon means MIDI. C6. So I'll address this later, but SurferEQ decided to identify everything as 1 octave down. If that doesn't matter to you, then you don't have to change anything. Just deal with it. But I'm sort of anal about that. So you can see it's shifting according to the pitch and keeping the same shape. So if I go to C here, right. Okay, now you notice that the kick isn't playing at all, and that's because I'm only triggering this MIDI out channel. So if I want to do these both at the same time, one way to do it, or probably the only way I know how to do it, is create a layer. With a layer, you can trigger multiple channels just by triggering one channel. So the way you do that is you set the layer's children. So what I'm doing is clicking this, I'm holding down Shift and clicking the kick channel. So now both are selected. I said set children. Okay. And so now if I trigger the layer channel, I get both. Might want to move this over. Okay, cool. So that's one way to do it. If you're using Patcher, the process is a little bit different, but pretty much similar. So I'm going to, you know what? I'm gonna make my life easy, save this as a preset. SurferEQ chat. Okay. So add this plugin again. Now you notice you got the same thing here. I'm gonna just load up my preset here. Cool. So now I've got that EQ curve going on, and everything is set, except MIDI. Oh, that's convenient. Okay, so MIDI input is set already. That's nice. Okay, so then what I do now is if you don't have this set, so let me just do that. Interesting. If you don't have MIDI input set, you won't see. Okay, you usually don't see the MIDI input token here node, but it's there. So what I'm gonna do is do this again. Yeah, if you don't see the MIDI input node here, then you've gotta go into plugin settings and change the input port to something. And you can see that, well, in a effects patcher, there is no MIDI input to be had. So what you have to do is, at least by default, what you have to do is select it, enable it manually. So you can select all the MIDI ports. So I've got 8 here. If I don't hook it up, you can see that nothing happens, right? But once I do that, now you see the MIDI icon and it's doing its thing, which is cool. Anyway, now if you wanted to do some stuff, like if you're a stickler about the pitch detection here, C4 is not what I'm playing right now, I'm playing C5. I can show you that. Or I thought I was playing C5. Where's... Yeah, same pitch. Anyway. You want this to show as C5, there's one easy way to do it. It might not be foolproof, but what you've got to do is use a key mapper. Yes, key mapper. Okay. And route the MIDI input to key mapper. You don't have to change any of this. You could just set the offset to 12 semitones, so it's 1 octave up. I don't know if it works for the entire octave range. It might not do that. And if you run into that problem, you might want to do a keyboard splitter and map multiple octaves to multiple key mappers. It's not that fun, honestly. Just don't be OCD. Anyway, and then you route this MIDI output into this input. Now, this should work, but of course it doesn't. And the reason is is because key mapper outputs to port 0. So if I change this now to port 0, then I get the expected output. So now it's C5 and C6 is exactly what I'm playing. Okay. Anyway, so that's SurferEQ and how to set it up in FL Studio. The plugin is quite expensive. It's like $200. And honestly, I'm working on a poor man's version of it, which looks... No, that's wrong. I'll create a separate video for that, but basically the poor man's version of it is super ghetto and involves... Where's the key tracking EQ? That's fun. Some math and a lot of painstaking keyboard controller stuff. And you can set the bands here. But anyway, I'll share a patch for this once I finish it and create a video for that. But until then, you can use a 7-day trial for SurferEQ, see how you like it, see if it's useful for you, and yeah. So if you learned something today, comment, share, subscribe, all that jazz. And yeah, see ya.